So I thought in this video I would do something a little bit different and have a little rant. I say rant, we'll have a chat. I'm out for a bike ride and I thought we'd just have a kind of make this a conversational piece. So what we're going to talk about today is mindset of soil management, kind of the psychology of soil. So buckle up, put your helmet on and let's get going. Different format in this video. Today we're going to talk about the psychology of soil and mindset and how this is super important when you're looking for long-term change. We're out on the bike, it's going to be a conversational piece, so put your helmet on, put your gloves on because it's cold, and let's get going. So I've picked the worst place to start this video because I'm actually going uphill, so it's bumpy, which is great, but I'll try and even that out by doing this all one-handed, which will make it twice as hard for me. So I said kind of in that intro that we'll talk about the psychology of soil, and mindset is really, really important when you're looking to bring about long-term change in your soil. And I kind of like to think back to the Albert Einstein quote, which is, you can't bring about change through the same mindset that created the issue. And that should be the case really with soil if you're looking to bring about significant change. Oh, nearly at the top of the hill. That's what it looks like. We've got a descent in a second, so that's good. So kind of thinking different is obviously going to be key, and that's especially the case if you're looking to do things different. Right, I'm going to put you on the front of the bike, ready for the downhill. Oh, squeaky brakes. So what we found there is it's almost impossible to go downhill on the bike whilst talking to a camera with only the back brake, which is squeaking like crazy because it's not working properly. So we're just going to coast this now. So thinking differently is key. That's my point here. The other thing is thinking about the hole. And I don't mean a hole in the ground, that's not a pun. Just hold the bars. What I mean by that is kind of you're thinking about your end objective. Some puddles. Thinking about your objective and keeping that always at the forefront of your mind. Now, oh, this is super sticky. Quite often when I am, wow, spin up. Yeah, we've had a lot of rain. Quite often when people come to the laboratory and they're looking to get a microbiological analysis, they get that analysis and then they get really, really carried away. Everything starts revolving around the microbiology, and that's good for a little while, but I really do think it's possible to not so much kill a soil but destroy its functioning capacity by getting carried away with the life in it. Now don't get me wrong, like a healthy active soil is really, really important. I tell you that in almost every single video, but if you only focus on the soil life, you are forgetting about the physics of the soil, you are forgetting about the chemistry. We'll stop here for a minute. Oh, squeaky. You're forgetting about the chemistry as well. And you'll know from my other videos, that's where we've just come from, you'll know from my other videos, I think one of the first videos I did, which was Soil Science is Easy, I talk about these three aspects And those three aspects are really, really important. You do one thing in one of those areas, it will have a direct or indirect effect on the other two. And so by all means focus on soil life, but you have to have your end goal in mind, which is possibly to have the maximum amount of nutrients available to your plants and crops, and in which case you should be mindful of and ideally measuring what's happening in the chemical domain and also the physical domain. So think of the whole objective, think of soil as a whole, and spend a bit of time by all means focusing on the microbiology, but don't forget the physical and the chemical as well. Now I'm going to tuck you away before talking about the third and final point. We're about to go downhill again and it's going to get messy. So this is really cool. I've just stopped here in front of what is called an Anike, and I don't know if you can fully see it. It's like an old Neolithic ditch. There's a steep bank on each side, and this ditch kind of just runs probably about a quarter of a mile in that direction, which is pretty cool. Thought we'd stop whilst we were on the route. Yeah, it's proper muddy today as well. The astute ones amongst you will have noticed I like soil, and therefore I like playing in soil as well, especially when it's been raining and it's muddy. But the downside is I am not on the most aggressive tyres where you can't even see the tyres, which means that I am slip sliding about. But it's all good fun. Let's press on. I hope this works out, but it's not without issues. The memory card has just come up and shown an error, so I don't know what clips have recorded or not. So the other thing I thought I would talk about is kind of arrogance, and believe it or not, there is quite a bit of arrogance in the soil world, even amongst growers. And it's this belief that not so much you know it all, but you have found the one solution that works and that is it. Kind of remind people soil is dynamic, it's changing all the time, and actually to work effectively it needs to be changing all the time, especially if you're growing plants and food. The situation, the conditions will be changing as the crops change, so you should never really get complacent. I think we're going to change route slightly now because it gets really muddy, so I might actually even abandon bike for a second. Let's have a look. No, I think we'll press on this bit, we're fine. Yeah, so don't be complacent. It reminds me of a grower we did some soil tests with a while back, organic grower, and he was kind of on the, he would go through here, he was kind of under the misguided belief that because he was organic and because he used animals a lot on his land to fertilise it, kind of in place of composting, but in his words he was using animals to drive up organic matter. This is pretty, look. He never needed to test his soil because his organic matter levels were fine, and we actually tested his soil as part of a group grower trial we were doing, and he was shocked and horrified to find that actually his soil organic matter, his soil health wasn't as good as he thought it was. And so he became complacent over 10 or 12 years of this transition over to organics. He thought that doing the same thing over and over was kind of the permanent fix for soil health in his situation, and the soil test showed that was not the case. So don't be complacent is my third kind of tip on psychology of soil. Now the easiest way to not become complacent, I kind of alluded to it there, is routinely testing your soil so that you know exactly what is happening, what changes are occurring. That way you know. If you don't measure it, you don't know. So it's quite simple, and there's different ways to test it. I've done other videos on that, so I won't kind of go into it, but do not presume, do not become complacent, test so that you know. Oh, abandoned bike at this bit. Now, I always seem to start the camera rolling when I'm going up a hill, which is just poor planning from me, really. But thankfully they're never massively big fields, massively big hills. We kind of live on the fringes of the North Wessex Downs, where I am, not far from the South Downs, so not the hugest, just short and sharp. But the get off here. The third thing that I wanted to talk about kind of relates to patience again, but it's this human instinct. We get bored very easily and we want to do something different because we get impatient. We seldom are able to put our attention on one thing for too long. We want to change because we get bored of waiting. And this is the same with growing, especially where you're trying out new systems. For example, I don't know, testing the effects of compost tea on soil or seaweed or something like that. Most people, say most, a large majority of people will kind of test those things out looking for relatively short-term results, and then they won't necessarily see a benefit, so they'll change and they'll test something else out. Maybe that'll work for a bit, so they'll stick to that for a while, but then they'll get bored and try something different again. What my point is, if you're always testing, you're never really going to truly understand the long-term benefits. And so maybe we could rephrase this: instead of patience again, or lack of patience, or human nature, the propensity to move our attention onto other things, we should look at it as commitment. In reprogramming our mindset for better soil, we need to commit to a way or a few ways that we are going to invest a reasonable proportion of time in, years I mean by that, to really fully exploring, understanding and making work for us. All those other things with our kind of attention deficit, the distractions, they are precisely that. They should be set up, if you need to satisfy that curiosity, set up small trials off the back of your kind of committed long-term strategy. So I think we'll wrap this little meander on the bike up with that. I'm just going to try and remember to summarise. At the start, you need to think differently to the mindset, the pre-programmed mind. Change your preconceptions, think differently to how you did at the start to avoid the same issues. You won't get out of those issues by using the same thought process that got you in that position in the first place. The second thing was patience and the effects of time. The third, God, can't remember, the camera went wrong there. Expectations, I think, was the third. Changing our relationship and how we think of soil. And then the fourth is commitment. And we'll wrap it up there because I need both hands. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please like. This is quite risky what I'm doing now, so you should definitely subscribe as well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. God, should have worn glasses. Woo. Wow. Now, for those that know, I feel grateful for having my Shimano brakes.